going on, everyone? Ken Landis with you here on the South to Central Florida Sports Report. Got a lot to get to today. Mainly the Miami Marlins are back in action. I'll have their predictions for the season as well as my predictions for the rest of the MLB. And we're going to go ahead and get into the Stanley Cup Playoff picture as well. So a little love for the Lightning, but not too much. I guess you can count them in Central Florida. But let's go ahead and show you what's on today's show. So here's what we've got on today's show, the 5th episode of the South to Central Florida Sports Report. We're going to lead it off with the Miami Marlins because baseball's back. Not only will we talk about the Marlins, but we'll talk about the entire NL East as well as my playoff and World Series predictions. So we'll go ahead and get into those. Then we'll go ahead and get into the playoff hunt that the Panthers could not complete. They missed the playoffs by only 1 point, so I'll talk about the offseason hopes for the Panthers. And I'll also reveal my Stanley Cup playoff prediction in a bracket form. And then, speaking of brackets, we're going to go ahead and conclude our March Madness fiasco, if you will, as it is now April. April 10th is the day today. So we're going to go ahead and reveal how well I did, how well I didn't do, and a couple other brackets as well. So that's all coming up on today's show. So this season will be an interesting one for the Marlins as they have a total rebuild, and I believe it was 12 new players were making their MLB debut on opening day, or at least their first opening day rosters. So that just kind of shows you the youth that's in this team, which can be a very good thing, but it can also be a very bad thing. This is what the Astros went through 4 years ago. That's what everyone's comparing it to. So there is hope. There is some glimmer of very teeny tiny hope for the Marlins this season, but I'm not really buying into that hope, at least right now. I'd say give it another 2 years, maybe 3. They could be good next year. I was thinking the same thing before the season started, and now we're obviously a couple games in, more than a couple, especially on April 10th. So a lot of uncertainty with this team, I'll say. Before the fire sale, we didn't have pitching, and after the fire sale, we still don't have pitching, which was my main concern. But in the system, there are a lot of guys that can throw. They can throw hard. I've seen some promise from the bullpen, not a whole lot. But it's just going to be a roller coaster season, folks. You got to strap yourselves in and ride with the Marlins on this one, at least for this year. Derek Jeter thinks he's doing the right thing. I think he could be doing the right thing, but it's so hard to watch this. And it's going to continue to be hard all season long to watch these guys, but I'll be tuning in. I know that. I'll be cheering for the new guys, cheering for the guys that have been there for a while. Derek Dietrich's going to have to carry the team along with Justin Bohr and Rojas. Those are pretty much the only guys that have been here, as well as, Prado and Real Muto, but they started the season on the DL as well. So an interesting start to the season, and with that said, I will go ahead and get into my NL East predictions, which I had made at the beginning of the year, just didn't get to publish. So here they are. Here we go, my 2018 NL East predictions. And in first place, we're going to have the Washington Nationals at a record of 93-69. They're going to still be pretty impressive as they've got pretty much the same team, but a new manager. They'll take a step back from last year. They won 97 games last season and will only win 93, but they'll still clinch the NL East, no problem. Next is the Atlanta Braves, my surprise team in the NL. With a record of 85-77, they've got a bunch of young guys in their system, and one of them in particular will make their way up to the National League club this season, probably in about a week or so. His name is Ronald Acuna, and I saw him in my time at the Fire Frogs, as well as a bunch of other great young guys that are in the system ready to come up. But I believe Ronald Acuna, who tore it up in AA, AAA, High A, tore it up in every single minor league level he was in, and I think he'll tear it up in the major leagues once he gets there. Look forward to seeing him and what he can do. In third place, I hate to have the Mets here, but I do think they are good enough to make it to 500 this season if they can stay healthy. That was one of their big problems last season, as well as some other trouble with players and their mascot flicking off a fan. So there's that. The Mets were just a mess last season, but I think they'll at least be 500. Next is the Philadelphia Phillies, and I think they're another good up-and-coming team, but I just don't think they're there yet. They've got Rhys Hoskins as well as a decent pitching staff and some young fielders as well. I think they're further along in the development of their team when you compare it to the Marlins, who are in last place. And my prediction for them is a 65-win season. Thankfully, not 100 losses, but pretty darn close, as we'll finish 28 games out of the lead in the NL East. Now, here's just a collection of tweets that I've gathered over just the past couple days. The first one on the left is from when the Marlins lost 20-1 against the Phillies. And as you see, they gave up 25 runs in a game in 2003 and went on to win the World Series. I don't think that'll be the case this season. If it is, I will be pleasantly surprised. And then the Yahoo Sports Facebook post is referring to the game on Monday, April 9th, as the Marlins said their paid attendance was 7,003 people. But as I mentioned, that means paid attendance. That means season ticket holders and anyone who else bought a ticket probably didn't show up. Normally those numbers are a lot higher than one might think or see at the ballpark. I'd be willing to bet that not even 5,000 people showed up for that game. And then on the right is Marlins Man. I got a chance to meet him twice, once at a Panthers game and then once at a Marlins game as well. And I don't blame him for saying it's a AAA team playing an MLB schedule. But as you see, he is fed up with the Marlins, and I don't think we'll see him at a game until they start improving. So here we go, my full MLB season predictions for the entire league. We're going to go ahead and start with the NL East. As I mentioned, the Nationals are already going to win. I think the Cubs will have no problem handling the Cardinals and the Pirates in that division as well. The West will be won by the LA Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw's got to get a ring sometimes, folks. He's got to get it sometime soon. He's running out of years. And I think this is a good season to give it a run. The wild card is going to be won by the Brewers. I don't know who they're going to beat in the wild card playing game. I think it probably will be the Giants, maybe the Braves, but I don't think the Braves will get there just yet. So that's my wild card team. And as I mentioned already, my surprise team is going to be the Atlanta Braves for many reasons, but the big one being very talented youth, which is what the Marlins don't have at the current moment. So moving over to the AL, I think the Yankees will win the East, no problem. With Stanton and Judge in there, as well as Gary Sanchez, I think they'll win the division with over 95 games. The Central will be won by the Indians, led by Corey Kluber, as well as a veteran infield. I think they'll be pretty solid as well this season. They'll win the Central no problem over the Tigers and the White Sox, and the Royals, who are slowly fading. The West will be won by the all-powerful Houston Astros, the reigning AL World Series champions. They will be steamrolling through competition this year. I'm excited to see how badly they destroy their opponents. The wild card, though, will be won by the Red Sox. I think they will have a significantly better record and a home field advantage in the wild card play-in game. I don't know who they'll face. Maybe the Oakland A's. I'm going to throw that out there. Or my surprise team, the Seattle Mariners. But I think the Red Sox will still win over 85 or 87 games and get to the wild card and play in no problem. And the Mariners, as I mentioned, a good team, and King Felix needs a ring sometime soon as well. I think D. Gordon is a great addition. Even though they put him in center field, I think he can still contribute with his bat and his base running skills. So here we go. Here's my postseason predictions. The Nationals won't get out of the NLDS again, and the Red Sox will actually upset the Houston Astros in the division series, setting up a fantastic Red Sox versus Yankees ALCS, and the NLCS will be good as well with the Dodgers and the Cubs. I think the Dodgers will get back to the World Series once again, upsetting the Cubs once again. And in the World Series, I'm going to go ahead and say the Red Sox are going to pull this one out. They've got a great team, great pitching staff, some good, young, but very talented players in their starting lineup. So I think the Red Sox will win, and they'll beat Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers again, as the Dodgers will fall in another seven-game World Series. So there you have it. Those are my 2018 MLB predictions. So now moving forward, and we're going to go ahead and talk about the Florida Panthers and how they missed the playoffs by one stinking point. And that is extremely frustrating for me. And I was really hoping they would get there. They're a young team, a young, exciting team that have some really great players on it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this team can do in the future, but unfortunately this year was not the future. They're not there yet. And I just think that with Luongo being so old, it's going to be now or never for this team. And I think they'll go all out this summer to get a couple guys that will help Luongo get there and get back to the postseason. It's going to be hard because we already have so many pieces that we do not want to lose. We're already losing a key piece in Radim Verbata, who was a pretty good role player for the team. And I think with his retirement, they'll at least have room to bring in another guy. But we'll see where this goes. I mean, I'm extremely excited for the Panthers already in October, and the season just ended on Thursday. So I'm really hoping that the Panthers can add a couple great pieces and carry this team into the postseason, as we just missed it by one game. So that's pretty disappointing, but we're going to go ahead and look at what the Panthers have done this season, point-wise, as compared to the teams that did make it, and go ahead and talk about my postseason predictions in the Stanley Cup Finals as well. So that's coming up right now. In my previous show, I predicted how the teams would finish with these respective points and games remaining. As you saw, it was pretty tight at the time. Panthers were only 1 point out of it. And I'm comparing it to where they actually finished, and as you see, the Panthers and Devils did finish a point apart, just in the wrong direction for the Panthers, as the Devils prevailed with that second wild card spot. The Blue Jackets tied in points with the Devils. They got the first wild card spot, and the Flyers ended up sneaking into that third Metropolitan seed. So as you see, very tight all around, though. It was a very tight finish. The Panthers missed the playoffs by a single point, and they are the first team to do that since the 2014-2015 Bruins, and only the second team to miss the playoffs with 96 points since the shootout was installed in the National Hockey League. As you see that tweet from Bill Lindsay, former Panther play-by-play guy, or I'm sorry, color commentator on Fox Sports Florida. But a good note to bank off of here, the Panthers did earn 27 wins at home, which is a single-season record. And the Panthers will look to break that next season, as home ice was key for them. They just weren't able to keep up on the road. So more home wins will mean they don't have to win as many on the road, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. And the final bit of good news here from Panthers Twitter is that Lou is not going anywhere. He announced this today at the locker room cleanout. So hopefully Dale Talon will be able to build around his guys, his netminder in Roberto Luongo to help him get to the playoffs before he retires. He will be 40 in the upcoming season, so he's running out of NHL years, but there's no reason that he cannot be great next season. He's just got to stay healthy. So here we go, my Stanley Cup predictions for each round. We're going to go round by round here. And first round will be in the West. I think the Preds will roll over the Avalanche. They are a good team with some stars, but I just think they drew a very tough team to match up against in the first round in the Nashville Predators. I think they'll take it in 4 or 5 games. Next is the Jets. I think that they will defeat the Wild. I've loved the Wild in previous years in my Stanley Cup brackets, but I don't think they have it this season. I think they had it a couple years ago. I think they might have missed their chance, to be honest with you. But we'll see. This is one I'm not very certain on. I think it'll take 6 or 7 games for the Jets to beat the Wild. Next, I don't like the Vegas Golden Knights, and I'm going to pick the Kings in an upset, not just because I don't like the Knights. I really think that the draft got them, or the expansion draft got them, too many good players from too many teams. And I just think it wasn't very fair, which means I'm not looking forward to the Seattle team coming in the league in 2020 or 2021. So we'll see how that goes. But I think the Kings, they've been here before. I think Jonathan Quick will be able to handle this team. I just don't think Vegas has the experience in the playoffs. They've obviously experienced a ton of ups and downs this year as a team, but I just don't think they'll have it in the first round. I think the Kings take it in 7 games. Next, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Sharks, and I think this will be an interesting series as well with Anaheim, but I think the Sharks will take it in 6. So here's the Lightning's debut on my show, and I think they will prevail in 4 or 5 games over the Devils, as Lightning have just been obliterating opponents this season. Next, I think the Bruins will beat the Leafs. I don't think the Leafs are there just yet. Austin Matthews will continue to be a star for that team for many, 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 many years to come, and they will have some other chances to continue to make postseason runs, but I just don't think this year is their year. Next is the Capitals, and I think that Columbus is a heck of a team. They're coming in red hot, absolutely on fire into the playoffs. So this could be a potential upset, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that the Capitals will prevail in this one. I think Ovechkin and Holtby are just two of the stars that make up that team that will not allow for a first-round upset. And next, my series that I'm really looking forward to is a cross-state rivalry between the Penguins and the Flyers. This should be a good one, but I think the Penguins will prevail in 5 or 6 games over the Flyers. I'll go ahead and say 6, just because I think the Flyers will take a couple games at their home arena. We're going to move back over to the West, and we're going to say the Predators are going to advance to the Western Conference Finals. Once again, probably with relative ease. We'll go ahead and say 6 games this time, though. I just think they are just too powerful for the Jets, who are relatively new to the playoffs. And then I'm going to go ahead and go with the Sharks in this rivalry as well. A lot of rivalries in this year's bracket, which is going to make for an exciting time, exciting home games for each team. So Sharks move on. I just think they're out and hungry yet again, as they made it to the playoffs, or the Stanley Cup final, I think it was 2 years back, and lost as well to the Penguins. So 2 teams that fell victim to the Penguins. Will they face the Penguins again? I don't know. We're going to find out in a couple seconds here. I think the Lightning will beat the Bruins. They went back and forth for that first spot in the division all season long, and I think the winner that prevailed is the one who will prevail in this matchup. And I think the Penguins will actually lose to the Capitals. I think this could be the Capitals' year, as Ovechkin once again is getting late in his career. He wants a cup as well. I think this team will be hungry and ready to get it for him and send his team to the Eastern Conference Finals. So coming out of the West, I'm going to go ahead and say it is the Predators in the Stanley Cup. They are back for a second year in a row, and after losing to the Penguins, I think they will want it more than ever. And a team that you didn't maybe expect to see in the Stanley Cup, I'm going to go ahead with the Lightning, not really a Central Florida team, but you could call them a Central Florida team, all over on the West Coast. But I'm going to go ahead and say it's Bolts and Preds in the Stanley Cup final. And I ultimately think that the Preds will take it in 6 games. So there is my champion, at least, that I believe can make it happen. I'm going to say the Nashville Predators are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions. Real quickly, I just wanted to touch on the ending of March Madness. Villanova pulled out a blowout against Michigan. It was actually the lowest rated championship game in NCAA basketball history, just because the spread was already determined and the game was frankly just a blowout. So lowest ratings of all time, but the Final Four ratings were up pretty much probably because of Loyola Chicago being in there as an 11th seed. So that's just a little piece of information I learned from my one of my sports business media classes. So that's an interesting fact for you there. But real quick, I just wanted to touch on how I finished in my brackets, the one I showed you previously when March Madness began. So I'll go ahead and show you the results of those. So here is that bracket I showed you previously on my last episode of the South to Central Florida Sports Report. And this is how it ended. I ended up in the 83rd percentile and 2.9 millionth place. And I predicted 3 of the Final Four and 4 of the Elite 8 and less than half of the Sweet 16, which is interesting because I picked 3 of the Final Four correctly, and in my best bracket I had only actually picked 1 of the Final Four. Here is that best bracket, that's why I put it in quotes. I just got the most points because I predicted Villanova to be the champion in this one. This was kind of just my gut feeling bracket. And it was pretty bad when you look at the Elite 8 and the Final Four, but the champion did give me the most points. That's probably what bumped me up to the 89th percentile. So not a bad season for March Madness for me, at least. Some of them were pretty bad. I did a lot of coin flip brackets, and those ended up in about the 6th percentile. But as you know, I like to do fun brackets, so here is a fun one for you. It's Disney and Pixar movies. I'm not going to go round by round in here, just wanted to let you all know that Lion King and Toy Story are some of my favorite Disney movies, at least. And don't forget about Finding Nemo there as well. That's a pretty good movie too. It's one of my favorites. And then somebody made an ultimate one, and I just had to fill it out too. So here are the results from those. And once again, Lion King won. I really love that movie. So yeah, that's probably the first Disney movie I ever saw. And I had fun filling out this bracket too. I don't know what For the Win is, but thanks to them for an interesting bracket. And I know there are some other Disney nerds out there that love sports just as much as me. And when you're in Central Florida, you gotta give some love for Disney as well. So there you have it. There's another fun bracket for you. Fill it out. Let me know what you had as your champion if you want in the comment section. So that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Heat in my next episode after the season has finished and their seeding is final. So we'll get into that with a whole new episode coming up probably the next couple days. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Love to hear what you think about the show. Go ahead and leave some comments. Reach out to me on Twitter as well. I'll leave it at the end of the video. Thanks, guys. Catch y'all on the flip side.